you've definitely heard the name Hecate. She's one of the most referenced and popular deities in modern paganism. She shows up in movies like Practical Magic, TV shows like The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. She also was originally referenced in Shakespeare, in Macbeth, and even in older and older writings, because she's one of these goddesses that kind of predates the Olympians. That's older than Greece, that's older than philosophy, and when we really start to have written record of the worship and reverence of different deities. Another interesting thing about Hecate is that she's part of the mystery schools, and so her practitioners followed her in caves, in the darkness. They met in secret. So a lot of her historical worship wasn't necessarily something that was written down, but she's this force that permeates all of life. She's considered to be a threefold goddess. That means that she has multiple different forms. And that's one of the ways that we get this modern depiction of the mother, the maiden, and the crone, which I personally find to be a little bit problematic sometimes, because when we're looking at the feminine archetype, I just think that there are so many more stages of life, of womanhood than just being like in your maiden to your mother to your crone. I do think it's a really helpful archetype to explore, but that's just my own opinion as a person who hosts a lot of women's circles and things like that. Oh, also, by the way, welcome. My name is Wisteria Root. This is the Witch's Bedroom, where we talk all about sacred sensuality and the divine feminine. I love mythology and archetypes, and I really believe that by exploring different deities, we're able to see more of the mythological parts of ourselves. Also, I'm a devotee of Hecate. I've been following her for a really long time. I have tattoos in honor of her. She is the deity that I have had the most visceral, physical experiences with. The ways that she has come into my life have truly transformed me on every single level, and the magic that I've woven with her has been some of the times that are the most otherworldly and the most affirming to me that there's something so much more than this sort of like capitalistic bubble that we sometimes get stuck living in, especially as an American. And so that's what we're going to be exploring today. It's my deep honor to share her story with you, and I am really curious to know if you have any questions or what your experience working with her is. So throughout this video, if you have any thoughts, make sure to drop them in the comments below. Also, I run this thing called the Bedroom Coven, which is my beloved coven that I've created in order to really explore self-love, magic, sacred sensuality, and reclaiming the power of the witch and the divine feminine that lives within us. So if you're interested in that and you want to go deeper with me and really dive into my work, you can join the coven. Or I also offer private readings. I'm a professional tarot reader, a rune caster, aura reader, all those sorts of things, and I would love to read for you. So all that being said, let's dive back into Hecate, the goddess of witches. The goddess of witches, the goddess of night, the mother of the moon. She's got so many different titles. A lot of times she's referred to as the dark mother, as the mighty one. She's got lots of different names and epithets that we'll get down into later. An epithet is like a specific version of a deity. So if she rules over all of these things, you would call on Hecate Indonia for like a specific aspect of what she rules over. So we're going to be talking a little bit today about all of the different ways that you can work with her and kind of an overview of who she is. If you're looking to go deeper into this stuff, these are kind of my book recommendations and where I have gotten some of my information. I really love, Cindy Brandon is kind of the most popular published author who talks about Hecate. So these are both her books. She has Keeping Her Keys, which talks a lot about how do you go through your own initiation with her, and what working with her as a modern practitioner looks like. I find that a lot of Hecatean practitioners, because she was part of a mystery school and a lot of her historical tradition hasn't been written down, we're not recreationists of the ancient religion as much as we're finding new ways to work with her as she shows up now. So book is a really great one for talking about how you can kind of forge like a personal relationship to her. So that's Keeping Her Keys by Cindy Brannon. And then this one I really like as a guide that you can just go to as you're doing spell work. It's called Entering Hecate's Garden. It's also by Cindy Brannon. Inside of it, she talks about formicoi, which is a specific type of witchcraft that uses the plant essences in order to weave your spells and magic. She's got some great healing spells in here, things that I find to be really, really effective. She also talks about the different epithets and how to do really practical magic. So this one is fun if you're wanting to, you know, like make salves and balms and poppets and get really witchy, get a little Sandra Bullock on this bitch. So that's a great book. And also, we couldn't talk about Hecate without talking about the Orphic Homeric hymns. An interesting thing that I found out about her in the research of this video, I knew that she was one of the Titan gods. So in the War of the Olympians, there's the war between the Titans and the gods, and ultimately Zeus ends up winning. Hecate is a Titan, and she is this primordial force that rules over the land, the sea, and the sky, and she aids Zeus in defeating the Titans, and because of that, he swears his allegiance to her. And it's really interesting because in the story, he gives her dominion still over the land, sea, and sky. And it's even said that he venerates her above all others. And so here we have this sort of patriarchal, like, king, not in like a patriarchy way, but in like the word, the patriarch, right? Like this monarch figure, this figurehead of this community, that's like this strong man who is giving all of his power, all of his honor to Hecate, which I think says a lot about who she is. And when we look at her as the mother of the moon, she's sort of the womb of creation itself. So when you're standing on the beach and there's the ocean right here and the sand is right here and you can look off into forever and the wind is whipping around you, that is Hecate, because it's this place where three different worlds meet. So we're going to get even deeper into that, but we have to talk about her with the Orphic hymns because she's actually older than the Olympians, older than the Greek gods. And I found out in my research, she actually originated in what's modern day Bulgaria, and kind of like migrated down into Greece. So she doesn't actually come up a lot in the Orphic hymns, and she's not actually, I don't know why I can't say that word right, hymns, the Orphic hymns, anyway, so she's not mentioned a lot in here, but she is a part of the hymn to Demeter, which is Persephone's story, so that's a great place to kind of get the feel of the people who worshipped her. They did worship her in ancient Greece, and we find evidence of this in statues that are usually placed at crossroads or inside of the home. So her worship happened inside of other temples. She didn't usually have her own temple, but instead there would be a shrine to her inside of another god's temple, which I think is just such a powerful thing to look at that says, like, even when there was this development of our psyche and this like differentiation of all of the gods and what they do and the powers that they have, all of them still kind of venerated Hecate. And she represents the one, but not in like a Judeo-Christian God, like have no gods before me, I am the one kind of God, but she's like the one in the way that she encompasses everything. There's a concept that I believe started with Carl Jung, or he's the one who popularized it, called anima mundi. And anima mundi represents the world soul. It is that thread of connection that ties us all together, not just as human beings, but as the plants and the animals and all of these different threads that come together to create our consciousness. Hecate is the field of consciousness itself. And so she can be worked really well when you're trying to discover something new, uncover a mystery, do deep subconscious healing work, dive into your own shadow, reclaim forgotten wisdom, past life work, talking with the dead, like any kind of hypnotic, transcendental state where you're accessing other realms of information other than just like the physical plane. You can really, really work with her to clear the path and to light the way. She's regularly seen holding torches, and in the hymn to Demeter, she is the one who helps Demeter, or helps Persephone come back home, and she helps Persephone when she travels between the upper world and the underworld every year. She's Hecate's companion, or she's Persephone's companion. So the two of them work together really well. And if you want to explore more of how to work with Persephone, I did another video that talks about how to work with her on embodying your own sovereignty and reclaiming your power. So that's a great video that you can check out as well. Back to Hecate though. So she's depicted as the keeper of the keys, the guardian of the hearth, the home, the crossroads. And so let's start with the hearth and home. Like I said, people will have totems to her by their front door as sort of a guardian of the space. Also, people would sacrifice the unwanted or unknown dead to her. So if there was a traveler who was in a town that wasn't where they were from and they died and nobody knew who they were, they would give them to Hecate because she's the guardian of lost souls. So a lot of times people who come to her are people who have experienced some kind of trauma, who have been ostracized or outcast in some way, and they're sort of the underdogs, which makes sense why she's a goddess of witches, because it's like we're reclaiming these lost and forgotten parts. Now, we also get to the crossroads as a metaphor for change and decisions. She is the guardian of what has yet to become and what has been. So when you're trying to figure out where to go, that's a great way to break through with her. That's the way that she really first entered into my life, is I was in just a place that I didn't want to be. Like my life was so colored by the generational curses that I had borne for others and the patterns that had been created from all of that I felt like I was stuck. I was like stuck in this tiny town that I grew up in. I was stuck being a waitress when I have all of these ambitions and skills, but I didn't know how to get there. I was stuck in a relationship because I was terrified of standing on my own and was like looking for my worth in other people, as we do, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I felt so helpless. I felt so afraid of how big the world was, and I just felt completely powerless to being able to do anything about it. Because I had been told all of these narratives about how hard it is to make it, and I ran against all of these challenges, and also I'm too much of a creative genius to be put in a box in that way. But I didn't know another way. I was always told like, oh, you can't pursue the arts, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, like it's gonna be too hard. Even though it's like the most natural thing to me, I was like suppressing my natural gifts because I had been told so much that like, oh, they'll never get you anywhere. But I think that that's bullshit because look at me now. Hey. Anyway, so that's where she entered my life. I was in a lot of fear. I was in a little box. I was like the Eight of Swords card, just like wrapped in chains. And I did 2 spells with her that really kicked things off. One of them was a road opening spell where I said, I don't know where to go. I don't know what is out there for me, but I know that there's something bigger than this, and I know that I can't stay here, and I know that if I do, I'm literally going to die. And so I think I don't do jars because I want all of my spells that I leave outside to be biodegradable. I think that that's a really important witchcraft thing. It's like, if you're burying something under a tree, that better not poison the fucking tree. Otherwise, like, your work isn't gonna do the thing that you really want it to do. So instead, I like to do bags, especially like hemp bags or like tea bags, something that's going to degrade over time. And I put my spell jar in there. I had different herbs that I put together. I probably used the Entering Hecate's Garden book to figure out what spelling was gonna do. I did my whole ritual. I went to the crossroads outside of my apartment in the middle of winter. Okay, I walk out there. I'm in some dramatic cloak. Okay, I don't care if I'm living in suburbia. Look at me weird. Okay, I'm practicing my tradition here. And also, if you want the magic to work, you have to dress the part. It's the way. And so here I am, dramatically gallivanting through the snow, up to the crossroads. I bury my spell bag, and I do this invocation. It's a full moon. I ask her to clear my path as the moon wanes. Within 2 weeks, I get the opportunity to travel with the Renaissance Festival, which eventually turns into me being a professional tarot reader, reading for over 10,000 people and creating a family and a community that has uplifted my life and brought so much magic out of me and to other people. And that's where we are right now. Like, we are in the aftermath of that spell, and I'm grateful for it every single day. And that was the beginning of that. And that was a really hard transition, okay? Like, it wasn't easy to, like, make that jump and leave everything that you've ever known behind and, like, do the thing. Like, I was terrified. And in my fear, she, like, came to me and she gave me the path. She cleared the way. She made me feel really safe. And as I went down and further along, there have been moments where she will just challenge me to, like, stand even deeper into who I am. Which we'll get to that in a second, because I want to talk about another really important thing. It's kind of a disclaimer about her if you're going to work with her. She's a very powerful deity, and this is something that I didn't know when I first started really doing deity work, but your highest self, your essence, is the only entity, the only energy that you can tap into that has only your best interest in mind. All of the different gods and egregores and deities and beings and essences all have their own agenda. The gods are a bubble of consciousness, a character that exists on a different plane of existence. And they all are advancing one specific energy that they're connected to. And we can see this in the different narratives over the period of colonization. This is like a whole thing that I would love to get into, but in a very different video, because I will go off about it. So anyway, the gods have their own agenda. There's like something that everybody has fed into this deity over and over and over again, and now this deity represents this one thing. Research egregores if you want to know more. And so when it comes to working with Hecate, like, she isn't just doing what she's doing in your life for you. She's the world soul. Like, what she initiates and awakens in you, if you choose to work with her, is for like a greater purpose, and it is going to push you because the greater purpose is intense. Like, the things that are happening in the world are not easeful and peaceful. Like, it's possible to have peaceful transitions. Like, the whole thing that she wants to bring into the world is more love, is more nourishment, is this rebirth of nurturing earth energy. But in order to do that, like, you're gonna have to fight for it, because there are real oppressors, and she's the goddess of the oppressed. And so if you really dig into working with her, there's a good chance that she's gonna make a teacher out of you. She's gonna make a voice piece or an artist or a creator or an activist, a community organizer. Like, that's who she is going to help you step into in your own way that's sustainable for you. Like, she's not going to tell you, if you're a disabled person, she's not going to tell you to do something that's going to hurt you. But she is going to push you to your absolute limits so that you can really shine your light into the world, because it's what the world really needs. And there's so much fear that holds us back and that makes us play small. And who does that really benefit? It certainly isn't divine liberation. And so just know that, like, when you're working with her, you're agreeing that you are giving energy and contributing to the greater good of the all, and sometimes that's gonna look weird and intense and kind of scary. There's like another disclaimer that I have about working with her. Some people think she's really scary, kind of because of this. Like, she's intense, you know? She has this triple form that we were talking about at the beginning. So in some depictions, she'll come to you as like a very fair maiden who, you know, is beautiful and approachable. And then there are other versions of her that are like grotesque and creepy and like in a way, or like inhuman and like really freaky. And then sometimes there's ways that she'll come to you that is like this old woman who is very, very wise. And sometimes she'll come to you as like these different, like, she's a shapeshifter. She'll come to you in many different ways. I feel her the strongest as the night. Like, when you are in a dark room or when you are outside at night and darkness is touching everything, the entire world around you is colored by this lack of light. Like, that is how I feel her the most. And it's like the air feels electric when I invoke her and when she's around and when we do work together like that, because it's like she is this thing that permeates everything. And so you can gain so much wisdom and so much strength from her, but she's not going to sugarcoat things. Like, she's not going to pretend like the horrors aren't real. She's gonna show you them and then say, like, what are you gonna do about it? She very much so is like a warrior energy in a way. Like, very different than like Freya warrior. Like, it's anyway, so that's some of my disclaimers. My favorite way that she really appears to me in my envisionings of her, that's, I do paintings. I'll show you the painting that I did of her at the end of this video. But I didn't paint exactly how she comes to me because it's really hard to put that into brushstrokes, but I'm still working on it. But she comes to me as like a wolf woman because one of her totem animals is dogs. So if you hear howling or barking dogs when you're doing work with her, you can also take care of dogs in order to like forge that deeper connection, whether that's at a shelter or your own or whatever. So she comes to me as this wolf woman, and she's always like got these big teeth, and they kind of like snarl and they drip, and she's got these like eyes that are like canine golden eyes that just peer into your soul like stars. And she's in this cloak, and she's got like fur and claws, and she's not afraid to be like so much bigger than humanity in a way. And she just like beckons you to me, like she pulls me forward. My most profound times of working with her, so I do this road opener spell. I start traveling all over the United States. Over the course of 3 years, I went to 37 states, and I read tarot professionally in 10 of them, for over 10,000 people. And in between times that I was working, I was very devoted to her regularly. There was a period of 4 or 5 months where I lived alone in the national parks during the week. And then on the weekend, I would go to the festival and I would read tarot, and then I would go back into the woods alone. And I did that for a while. And that was the time that I was kind of in deepest communion with her. And so every time that I would drive to a new state, I would invoke her to protect me on the roads. When I was living out of my van, I would protect her to protect my home, and in the woods to protect me in this space. And one of the ways that I would work with her at the festival grounds that I was at, or wherever I would go, I would find a place that felt safe, and I would do walking meditations at night. So I would, especially in like the campgrounds that I lived in, where there were other people that I knew, there would be a campground sort of connected to the festival that I worked at, and I would walk through the festival at night in my dramatic black dress, and I would not use a light, and I would just really do a walking meditation with her and trust and receive like where she wanted me to go and what she wanted me to do, because I knew that I was in a place where I was safe to be alone in the dark, which is sometimes the hard part. When I was in Florida, there was a labyrinth sort of maze thing. Like, it wasn't supposed to be a labyrinth, but it just was right behind the fair that I was living at. And so I would walk through there, and it was through like the palm trees in the sand at night with the moon shining. And it was like, you don't know where you're going. And there's so many different like turns that it's kind of hard to figure out how to get back. And so in doing that, I learned a lot about how to trust my intuition, because every single time I made it to the right place. And so it was scary, but it was also empowering, because I would walk with her, and I knew that I was like being guided to trust myself and to do what I need to do. And I think that that's really translated into my life, because I've got this tenacity where I'm just like, I'll figure it out. Like, I don't know how I'll do it, but I know that I will. And I also know that the map isn't the territory. If I try to plan every move, I'm going to be missing something, and thinking about something is not the same as doing it. And so I learned from her in my walking meditations with her at night to just do it, to just go for it, to take that one step forward and figure out what I wanted. There was another time where I was working on a festival in Arizona, and we were having a celebration in the desert, kind of a couple of miles away from the festival. And in order to get there, my friends left before me, and my other friends were leaving after me. So it was like, I had this window of time where if I wanted to go, I was gonna have to walk alone. I don't know if you've ever been to the desert, but like, this was not safe. There are coyotes and snakes and scorpions and like real animals that are actually dangerous, and there's like choya and all of these like things that want to like attack you. And so like walking alone through the desert is not necessarily the right move, okay? But like I said, I'm stupidly brave. And so I was like, sure, I'll go. And I go by myself. I'm following the sound of the drums to figure out where to go in order to get to this gathering that my community is having. And I am scared. Obviously, I'm alone in the desert. It's the full moon. That's the only light I'm using. So like, I'm walking along, and I just get this feeling that's like, oh, I don't want this. Like, I'm going because I feel like I have a fear of missing out and I want to be there, but I don't want to do it. And so I made it, I don't know, a quarter of the way there, and I turned around. And because I felt in my body this thing that was like, hey man, don't. Where in the past I would have forced myself to go because it was like a social obligation. So when I talk about Hecate being the breaker of the chains, the invigorator, somebody who will like provoke you in a way that is healing, that's kind of what I mean. It's like, I felt guided by her to go out into the desert by myself. And then I felt guided by myself in that moment to be like, ew, I don't want to do this. So then it taught me like my own limitations, and it taught me that it's okay to say no to people. And there's lots and lots and lots of different ways that I've worked with her. Like I said, walking meditations, crossroads at night. Can't get better than that. Especially if you're in a place where it's safe to do that, which is the number one key, is to be safe. I'm reading my notes right now, making sure I told you everything about her. Okay, so there's a couple of different versions of her. Hecate Endonia, Hecate of the road, or Hecate on the way, the traveler. You're doing some travel, she's the goddess of the land, the sea, and the sky. So she will hypothetically bring you peace in a situation where you are putting your life in somebody else's hands. Hecate Trodia, the frequenter of the crossroads, my girl. Hecate Propalaya, Hecate of the gates, the guardian, the keeper of the home. So if you're wanting to work with Hecate, the best ways for you to dive into that, check out those books that I said at the beginning of the video. Build an altar to her in your home. Include keys, garlic, herbs that you want to work with, candles, crystals, your house keys, things for your pets. Have her as a guardian of your home. Come back to her regularly. She's great. She's an oracle. So tarot cards, whatever your form of divination is, have a cup of tea with her. That's one of the things that I like to do to kind of just reconnect me with her, and start to welcome her into your life, because I think everyone's connection to her is going to be very different. Like, you know, maybe she won't have you walk through the desert alone in the middle of the night in a safe way. I felt fine. I'm good, you know? But she's gonna help you face your fears in some other way. Help you find confidence. Help you remember your power and shrug off those societally imposed limitations about who you can and cannot be. Call upon her when the weight of the world and the forces at play against you feel insurmountable, and watch as love begins to bubble up around you in a way that can only be described as magic. It's truly an honor to work with her, and I feel as though I've worked with her a lot in many different lifetimes, and every time that I reconnect with her, I feel like it's the most obvious choice to want to bring about truth and illumination, and to lean into the unknown and to uncover more, because, you know, and this is getting a little bit of a bigger picture, but I think that Earth is a school, and I think that we come here to learn how to be fully, how to experience it all, like every frequency, from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows. And she's one of those goddesses who has shown me the sacredness in all things. When things are born and when things die, I feel her presence. And I feel her giving me the peace of knowing that all of this is temporary and all of this is infinite at the same time. I'll definitely make other videos about working with her. This is sort of a crash course introduction. I hope that I gave you some helpful tips. A lot of working with her is like just going for it, is following your intuition, is doing that kind of that ritual, getting really witchy or whatever it is that's really calling to you that you're like, I don't know, like that thing. There's a great Joseph Campbell quote, "The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek." So if you want to start working with her, figure out what cave you're afraid of and put on your spelunking gear, because she'll take you very deep. All right, if you want to support my work, check out the Bedroom Coven down below. Like and subscribe, share this video. You can get a private reading with me and we can talk about your unique path to work with Hecate. All that's down below, and I will see you next time in the witch's bedroom. Bye!